Thank you. While I wait for the presentation to show up, Your Excellencies, Madam Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting Telesat, which I'm proud to represent at this very important, very interesting event. It's super interesting to hear the challenges that many countries that you represent have in terms of policies on ICT. And I want to spend the time here that I'm given to present not only my company, but also one project that the company is investing on that may solve some of the policy problems that we have heard, mainly addressing connectivity issues, affordability, and quality of service that the citizens and business of your countries expect from satellite connectivity. So Telesat is a satellite company that has been operated for more than 50 years. So it's not one of these startups that are coming onto the market recently. We are headquartered in Canada, and we have offices all around the world. Until recently, the main business of Telesat, the main revenues of Telesat were coming, like many other satellite operators, from providing direct-to-home services, so basically satellite television, etc. And more recently, we have seen that the kind of services that we are offering through our satellites are not only broadcast, but also evenly enterprise connectivity, mainly data backhauling, etc. And also we provide consulting services also to other ICT companies that need engineering consulting. So currently we operate a fleet of 15 geostationary satellites, and more recently the company has invested considerably in the definition of a project which is called the Telesat Lightspeed that I will present later on, which consists in deploying a constellation of low Earth orbit satellites that can provide connectivity solutions worldwide. And we, as a company, decided to shift into low Earth orbit, so deploying satellites in this kind of orbits, because we see that there is a huge market shift to LEO. My colleague from OneWeb addressed this already partially, but we see that there is a demand for different services from citizens, business all around the world. I fully agree that low latency is one of the features that future communication technology should offer, because there are applications that are more and more popular that require low latency and which geostationary satellites cannot offer for physical reasons. But also, we also know that depending on the country, depending on the geography of the territory to serve, the demand for connectivity is not homogeneous and is depends on the kind of service and the kind of geography to serve. And also, we also see that the markets and regulators start to favor low Earth orbit satellite services for certain applications for which the geostationary orbit may not be well suited. So the project that Telesat is investing on is called Telesat Lightspeed. So I'm an engineer as a background, so I will put some numbers on the following slides, and I will describe more technically what our project is about. So the Telesat Lightspeed constellation will be composed of around 200 satellites initially, and it will scale up to around 300 satellites at the second stage. The satellites that we plan to deploy are organized in 2 orbital shells. A minority of them, around 80 satellites, are deployed on polar orbits around 1,000 kilometers of altitude in order to provide a global connectivity. And then there is a second shell, which is at around 1,300 kilometers of altitude, of inclined orbit satellites. So the majority of them will be on inclined orbit because the majority of the demand that we see is in latitudes that these satellites can serve. This system is operating fully in Ka band, so around 18 gigahertz in the downlink and around 28 gigahertz in the uplink. And both gateways and user terminals will use this kind of band. Not only that, but the satellites that we are deploying will also be equipped each with 4 optical intersatellite links that provide 2 main features that are quite unique for the constellations that we are deploying. First of all, the satellites do not need always to see a gateway Earth station to serve a territory, because there is basically a network of satellites in the sky that can link the traffic from one satellite to another through optical intersatellite links. And also another feature of the constellation is that the beams that are formed by the satellites are steerable and shapeable and are present only if there is a customer to serve. And this is very important for an efficient use of the spectrum that we are using, because the satellites will transmit power and will receive power from user terminals only when there is a necessity. And we know that the Earth is covered mostly by water with a few users on it, so we prefer focusing the resources of the system to serve only customers that require them. What are the markets and the verticals that we serve? And this is quite important for us, because contrary to other solutions that we see on the market, we are not offering services directly to users, for 2 basic reasons. First of all, we want to have a business which is sustainable, a project which is sustainable, and we believe that serving directly a user terminal, a user selling the service directly to user, is not sustainable now, simply because the technology is too expensive, and for example, a user terminal must be subsidized somehow to allow for a user to use the service proficiently. So the verticals that we are addressing at the beginning for with our constellation are the mobility verticals. So we are serving the aviation and the maritime sectors, and I will show some examples of these. We are addressing government requirements of connectivity, and also, and in particular, we are serving our potential customers will be enterprise and MNOs, because the system, the Telesat Lightspeed system, can be used as a backhauling solution for MNOs that can provide connectivity, for example, on an island and on many of the geopolitical realities that we have heard in the past couple of days. Since we don't have a lot of time, I don't want to risk repeating myself, but another important feature of the system we are deploying is also the security and the scalability. We know that, unfortunately, there are some geopolitical realities in which security is very important. Of course, having a satellite system which is designed with security in place can be a plus for certain applications. And just to give you a few examples, since the Telesat Lightspeed system will have the opportunity to focus the capacity wherever the demand is, we are working with use cases that are allowing generating for example, up to 15 gigabit per second of concentrated capacity over an airport, for example, or for example, we work with a use case based in the Caribbean, where we can the system can concentrate 600 gigabit per second over the Caribbean, which means providing to up to 600 cruise ships a connectivity of up to 1 gigabit per second per cruise ship. And imagine that the total capacity of the system we are deploying is about 10 terabit per second. So there is a huge potential for a lot of services that we can provide. We have deployed already a single satellite for carrying out some tests and demonstrations with MNOs, and to validate also the use cases I've talked about. And the timeline that we have in mind is to start offering service at high latitudes around 2026. Our satellites are quite complex. We are facing a few challenges, like all the industry is facing at the moment, and we believe that we will be able to provide global services around 2026 and 2027. I want to skip through the following slides very quickly. You know that at the end of the year, this is the year of the World Radio Communication Conference, and there are a few items at the World Radio Communication Conference at the end of the year that are important to sustain and to support the satellite services, especially with respect to mobility. There is an agenda item at WRC 23, which is called 1.16, which is about non-geostationary Earth station in motion, which will provide a regulatory framework to allow these user terminals to be deployed on aircraft, maritime, and perhaps also land mobile terminals. And also there is another agenda item at WRC, which is about inter-satellite links in the Ka band that are important because can provide support to weather monitoring satellite missions that are important for some of the countries. And then, if I have 1 more minute, I wanted to show you a video describing the system that perhaps can explain things better than I can do. I don't know if the video can be started. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the presentation. Thank you.